Hi, my name is Benny Johnson. As some of you know, I've been struggling with addiction. However, I decided to change my life and went into recovery. I've started this podcast 90 Days Clean, and I want to take you along in my journey. What does lie ahead of me? Let me be frank, I do not know. Will I ever drink again? I do not know. This is how Stairway to Redemption was born. It is my search for answer in a real-time process of what is going to work for me. It is then my aspiration to help you figure out what's going to work for you. It is our journey together. Welcome to Stairway to Redemption, a podcast about addiction and recovery. Today's guest is John, or JW, CEO of Curious Elixirs, non-alcoholic cocktails. Back in January, I attended one of JW's Curious Elixirs sober event for Dry January in Brooklyn, and I had a great time there. I had the opportunity of meeting him. And that's also where I met our mutual friend Lorelai from Good Awards AF, which you were also in attendance.
Yeah.
Speaking of Lorelai, check out her episode on our podcast. So now I give you JW. JW, why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Dr. Johnson. My name is JW Wiseman, and started Curious Elixirs a little over 8 years ago in the Hudson Valley of New York. I come from a hospitality background, having worked in bars and restaurants since I was, 19, and I love serving people, and I love serving myself a little too much alcohol, which is why I ended up on this sober curious path here. And it's been fun to get to know people like you who are part of the burgeoning movement that just keeps growing and growing. I think more and more people are waking up that life can be more fun with less alcohol. So it's great to be here.
Thanks. Yes, it's definitely a pleasure having met you, and thank you again for being a guest here. First, like the usual section of this podcast called the State of the Mind Address. So, what's new in the curious world? What are the how do you feel after like the Good Award AF? What's new now?
Feeling great. The Good AF Awards were spectacular. We were lucky to participate with Death & Co., which is one of the world's top cocktail bars. And we collaborated on a drink that ended up winning fan favorite that night, which featured Curious number 8, which is our most recent elixir. And I described that as our black and blue Amaro. So blackberry, blueberry, fig, and then 3 different types of functional mushrooms that help support the body. And I just wanted to create something that was really dynamic, really unique, and something where you can have it before or after dinner, and also something that bartenders can play around with, because bartenders, are starting to get hip to the fact that they can serve their customers better when they have more options, for those of us who don't drink. And for people who are just taking a break as well. But they don't have a lot of experience yet in mixing these drinks. So we wanted to give them something fun to play with that was unlike anything else. And unlike a lot of the other drinks out there, it's made with 100% clean ingredients. There's no funny business, no chemicals, no natural flavors, no nothing. So, and that all leads toward you feeling better, when you drink it. You're feeling rejuvenated after having something that's clean. It's kind of like, as you get older, I don't know about you, but with my diet, if I don't have some greens and some broccoli and some like vegetables in my diet, I feel terrible. And so it's kind of like that, you want to have like kind of eat and drink as clean as you can. So I've been feeling pretty good lately.
Okay, all right. Thanks for me too. I need some fiber in my diet.
Yeah,
Yeah, some greens. Usually I'm a sucker for kale and spinach right now. That's put it in my smoothie and stuff. So every time after I work out,
same.
I get a kale smoothie after my workout. Yeah, definitely. I know what you mean. So next,
Yeah, you're a fit dude.
yeah,
So
thank
I can
you.
understand, you
Yeah,
know.
thank you. So the next question, you started with it already, but do you mind elaborating more on the story behind Curious Elixir? Why was it created? Did it come from a necessity? Like, do you mind?
Sure,
Mm-hmm.
of course. Yeah, back in the winter of 2012, 2013, I had one of those crazy nights out where I had 20 drinks in the night. And I was really chasing the dragon. And what happened was the next day I woke up and I was fine. No hangover, maybe a little groggy, but it really scared the crap out of me that I could drink so much and my body was able to handle it. That to me was a problem. So I knew I needed to radically redefine my relationship with alcohol. What that began was this now 10-year plus journey of barely drinking anything anymore. I'm not 100% sober individual. I still have maybe a drink a month for research, but I found that, in the first few years after that night in the winter of 2012, 2013, when I wanted to take a night off from drinking, I would take off multiple nights in a row just to let my body acclimatize, because it takes the average body about 30 hours to metabolize alcohol out of your system. And my theory was, oh, this will reset my tolerance, right? And it did. Then I only needed to have, one or two drinks. But the issue was I still wasn't as sharp. It was still hard for me to take weight off. And I couldn't find what the tangible benefit was to drinking alcohol anymore. So over the course of the next 10 years, I just don't really drink much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, one of my best friends, who's a Broadway star and TV actor, he's been sober for 9 years now. And when I found that out, and whenever he and I would hang out, we wouldn't be drinking. There was nothing adult to drink. You're lucky if you found like a non-alcoholic ginger beer, and
Yeah,
then that has 60 grams of sugar in it.
yeah,
And that's not good for you either. It might taste good for a few minutes, but if you're ingesting that much sugar, that's just a different type of addiction.
yeah.
So, you know, that's kind of how this journey started. Just not finding anything that was out there that was interesting. So
Mhm.
then it began with questions, and that's part of the reason why we're called Curious, is that I started asking questions like, well, what would it take to make a non-alcoholic Negroni?
Mhm.
Um, what would it take to do that? And so that involved a lot of research, talking to a lot of bartenders, a lot of food scientists, a lot of herbalists. And then, after I kind of cracked the code, and it took a few years to make the drink that I wanted to see exist in the world, that was Curious number one. I was wondering, like, well, what if this could actually be beneficial to your body? What if this could help you de-stress without an addictive substance in it?
Mhm.
So I came across, and at the time I was head of marketing for Daily Harvest, which is a superfood smoothies and soups and company. And I started learning about adaptogens. And this is back in 2014. Um, and when I came across those, I was like, wow, this can actually lower my cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and can increase my serotonin and dopamine precursors with this amazing root called rhodiola.
Mhm.
Um, so started experimenting with that, started coming across ashwagandha, damiana, American ginseng, holy basil, shatavari, all of these fascinating herbs and roots that have been used by indigenous cultures throughout the world for
Mhm.
hundreds or thousands of years. And in many cases, we co-evolved with these plants. And so I just went deep on my questions, Benji. I just went deep on them and was like, let's try and figure this out. What will life look like if we have less alcohol? And that became the broader mission
Mhm.
for me. really in 2015 when we launched Curious into the wild, and happy to tell you that story too. It was pretty pretty fortuitous, pretty out there.
So like from 2013 to 2015, you basically did your research after that crazy wild night of drinking. It took you what, about
Yes,
2, 3 years to finally launch a Curious Elixir. So like, yeah. And
that's right.
yeah, how was the launch? Like how did it go at the beginning? Because you are probably one of the, I mean, right now, the game of non-alcoholic drinks is like booming and trending. There's so many options out there that, I'm even surprised how many options out there are now. But like, how was it at your time in 2015? You were probably one of the precursors of the movement, right?
As far as I know, we were the world's first non-alcoholic craft cocktail, and
Mm-hmm.
especially the first ones to use adaptogens as well. People had been making mocktails since, at least the 1940s, but to do it in a craft way without refined sugar, using real juices, not a bunch of fake stuff. This is not a Shirley Temple. This is something that has a beginning, middle, and an end to it. It's got refreshing up front,
Mm-hmm.
then it goes into bitter, or it goes into spicy, it goes into smoky, and it finishes still dry. There's plenty of sweet drinks out there. When we launched, there was nothing like this on the market. Now there's probably 200 plus brands
Yes.
that are making different drinks. And, for any of those makers or dreamers out there, I just encourage you, use clean ingredients, do it the right way. Don't rely on natural flavors and chemicals
Mm-hmm.
to kind of fake it, because we just don't really know if those are actually healthy or not. And so it's a little bit sketchy just to do that because it costs a little bit less.
Yeah.
Um, Farmers get paid less for that stuff. They're not even in the game if you're just making it with a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
you know, bullshit.
So yeah, I actually agree with you there. Like because before my options were limited. Either I drink soda or ginger beer or ginger ale, sorry, and those have a lot of sugar. So as a segue, how could you? I mean, it goes without saying that if you use natural ingredients and you try to be a farmer conscious, that those concerns will rise the cost of your drinks. So how would you? What's your argument when somebody comes to you and say like, oh, there's not even alcohol in it, but it's kind of pricey for a drink? Like, how will you defend that?
Well, I would say you're right. It does cost a lot of money to get blood oranges from Sicily.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only place in the world where you can get them. Really, in any large amount.
Yeah.
That's where they're grown. Same goes for pomegranates from Turkey. We use the world's best ingredients, and there should be and there are options that are less premium price,
Mm-hmm.
at a less premium price than Curious Elixirs are. We're working on making some lower cost options as well for future ones, but we wanted to start with the world's best drinks and make them as good as we possibly can first. And then the theory is, the larger that we get, the more we'll get economies of scale, and we'll be
Mm-hmm.
able to bring the cost down and make it more affordable for more people, because that's totally fair. There are a lot of people who probably can't afford Curious right now. We've had plenty of customers that say that to us, like, oh, I love this. This is such a great treat. I can't have it every week, though. I just don't have the money for it. And
Yeah.
so we pay attention to every single review that comes in to Curious.
Mm-hmm.
We have over 1 million customers across the country, and we take each one of their reviews very seriously, so that we can help serve them better, because ultimately that's what we're here to do. We're just trying to transform how we drink socially. And if it can't become a regular thing for a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a lot harder to achieve that social change.
Yes, exactly. And you're definitely a pioneer of like the social change when it comes to the non-alcoholic movement. Are you worried about big alcohol noticing that there is some money to make in this movement? Do you think like involvement in the movement will corrupt it, like, they
It
would.
could. It
Yeah.
could. I don't know. And because I don't know, that's one reason why we have not taken their money.
Okay. Oh, you
They've
were
approached us
approached?
many
Yeah.
times.
Okay.
Oh, we've been approached many times by virtually every major company that you can think of.
Mm.
I'm talking like the really large liquor and beer conglomerates. And I think it's also good for them to diversify. I think it's good for them to not be wholly reliant on alcohol. But as long as alcohol makes up the vast majority of their revenues, I think that's going to be what wags the dog. That's going to be what is ultimately going to make the decisions. It's the almighty dollar
Okay.
rather than the social change itself. That's one reason why we don't have outside investors. So we are only beholden to our customers and to our own conscience. And that's how we hope that it can stay. I mean, we're open to working with the right investment partner at some point in the future, maybe to go global rather than just the United States. Particularly because there's no way I'm ever going to know the intricacies of Africa and Middle East and Europe and Asia.
Yeah.
I'm one person. I'm not an expert in those cultures or those business climates. And so we might be open to that in the future. But to your question specifically around, big alcohol companies, I don't blame them for wanting to do that. It's good that they're doing that. That should help with some of the social change. The issue is if you look at something like, okay, another company that was invested in and had a social mission, Honest Tea. You might recall this company.
Yeah.
They were like, we're going to make better iced tea, lower calorie, less sugar, better for the environment. They grow up, they do a good job, they get sold to Coca-Cola for hundreds of millions of dollars. And where are they now? They're gone. They're shut down. They don't exist anymore. And I worry that could happen with some of the non-alcoholic players out there, particularly now that there are hundreds and hundreds of brands coming out, which is a good thing.
Yes.
But I think some of them, if it becomes a race to the bottom rather than a race to the top, then that might spell trouble for a lot of them that have a social mission. So I just say be careful, and make sure. But that said, it's like sometimes it's better to have a spot on the inside of an industry with the decision makers who have access to a lot of the things that a smaller company like us doesn't have, or doesn't have yet.
Yeah, I see. That's beautifully answered. So what are the challenges that you are facing now in the growth of your brand, since you don't take like outside investors and stuff? So the brand's been around since 2015. We're in 2023. So that's 8 years about, right?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with the way your company is growing? Because Curious Elixirs is pretty popular, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm not satisfied. I think it might have been the Protestant work ethic that my family put into me, but
no, go ahead. It's fair.
Yeah. No, it's a good thing, and it's really satisfying work. When we get one of these reviews in from a customer and they say like, this has made it so much easier for me to quit alcohol, and boy, did I really need to quit alcohol. That means the world to us. We're a small but mighty team of, about 20 people, and we're trying to do better and better every day. Just 1% better every day. If we can do that, it makes astronomical differences over the course of a year or 2 years or 10 years or 20 years. So that's kind of where we are right now. No, I'm not satisfied. We're always working on our flavors, trying to make them better and better. We're always trying to find better ingredients. We're always trying to make it easier for our customers to enjoy Curious. And at the same time, we're trying to support a few of these up and coming entrepreneurs who have smaller brands.
Oh, really? You do?
Yeah, I give I'd give a shout out
Mm-hmm.
to Naked Lady, who makes non-alcoholic whiskey and tequila and gin.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing entrepreneur. Um, her name is Becca. She's out of Louisville, Kentucky. And she's just trying to figure this out too. And I think a lot of people are, or there's people that are sober content creators. Like you probably met Rachel sober in Central Park and trying to
Yes.
help her as she navigates her own business and trying to
Mm-hmm.
make this, because it's going to take 1,000 people with 1,000 different solutions to make generational change in anything. That could
Yes.
be in the alcohol movement and the non-alcoholic movement. That could be in social justice. It takes so many people with so many different ideas
Yes.
and grit.
Yes.
You have to have that grit.
Totally. I totally agree with you on that. It takes like more than a village to change the social movement, especially around alcohol. I don't know if you notice, alcohol is the only drug of when you don't partake in it, people ask you what's wrong with you, like people never ask you like, hey man, why don't you do a heroin? Like, like what's wrong with you? But if you say you don't drink, people are like, really? Or like, no, stay suspicious. And yeah, it would definitely take a village. But we definitely saw recently, the past few years, like that the trendy of like the going up trend of the non-alcoholic movement. And I'm really happy that it definitely helped me staying sober, because of community that like are not necessarily in recovery but are sober curious, and hanging out with them helps me a lot, because I just don't want to hang out all the time with people who in recovery who breathe. Hey, that's a different, like that's a different topic, a different mind. I would like to hang out in the world with other people who still drink, but who are we are not gonna drink together. Can do something else. Um, the question,
Yeah.
you boarded that, like that one of your goals right now is still working on new flavors and new cocktails. What's your
And our existing ones too.
existing ones too?
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. What's your approach? Do you have a qualm between alcohol cocktails, alcohol-free cocktails that taste like the alcoholic counterpart, or that have their own organic tastes? Do you have like
I think the world is big enough for both, but here's
Mhm.
what I would say. When I was first developing Curious, I talked with a lot of people in recovery, and they specifically said, I don't want it to taste exactly like what I used to drink.
Exactly, I'm
Um,
part of those guys too.
and so what we tried to do is make drinks that are inspired by drinks that you might have had before, but are unique, that are
Mhm.
specifically made to be delicious and interesting and are something different than what already exists. We're not trying to make facsimiles of a Negroni. We're making something that's inspired by a Negroni. We're not trying to make a Mezcal mule. We're making something that's inspired by a Mezcal mule, but is different, and that also just comes out of like, I am a self-prescribed flavor slut. Like I love flavor, all different types. And with the possibility of like uni is one of the few things I'm not really a big fan of,
What's uni?
but other than that, uni is this Japanese seafood. I think it's urchin. I'm not 100%. I don't remember exactly. I'm having a little bit of a brain fart, but I believe it's sea urchin is
Mm-hmm.
uni. My friend Leti is going to kill me for not knowing this, but it's one of her favorite things. But anyway, like my favorite food memories are always rooted in something that are both have a touch of nostalgia, something from your past that it reminds you of, but it's always a little bit different. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like with Curious number 4, right? That's our Sicilian spritz. That's the one with the blood oranges from Sicily and
Mm-hmm.
also has green mandarin. So when you first taste it, you're like, oh, this reminds me of an Aperol spritz. But instead of finishing the way an Aperol spritz does, it has the tiniest bit of a floral citrus that to me reminds me of a creamsicle.
Okay.
But it doesn't finish sweet. It has this childhood memory that's baked in,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a little bit different. And those are some of the best things in the world to me. When I've had, incredible cocktails or food or dinners anywhere, my favorite memories, food memories, are ones that have a touch of nostalgia and a touch of something new,
Mm-hmm.
or new nostalgia, as one could say.
Nostalgia. That's funny. That's kind of you saying that reminded me of the movie Ratatouille. You remember that Pixar movie?
Of course.
Like, and
Yeah.
the food critic when he tries the Ratatouille, and it brings him back to his, like, back in the days where he was with his grandmother or something, like that nostalgia because it tasted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that point, and that's why I really like Curious Elixir. Like, he has his own organic taste. If somebody call it just fancy juice, I personally take offense to it because that's minimizing the work that's behind it. Because a Shirley Temple is a juice, for example, but like a cocktail, like it's apples and oranges. There's such a difference when you taste both. It's not because
Yeah.
they're both non-alcoholic that they should be part of the, like, two elements can be part of the same set, but that doesn't mean that they are equal. Like, Shirley Temple is a
Yes.
non-alcoholic drink. A Curious Elixirs is a non-alcoholic drink, but they're not equal. Like, and I'm trying to spread the message sometimes to tell people that, like, no, it's not exactly the same. But that's where, like, I'm gonna go now in the next section of this. So I'm part of the AA community, of the recovery community. And we have the hardliners that think that non-alcoholic drinks are for non-alcoholic. Uh, I peacefully disagree, but also my weight, my word doesn't carry as much weight because I'm newly sober, like about 8 months. The old heads with their, like, 10 years, 20, 30 years,
Sure.
they have a more I want to say more, they are listened to more, and rightfully so, because they are sober the longest, especially in something like alcohol or addiction that can take out so many people and destroy so many families. But will you like to
True.
comment on that argument that non-alcoholic drinks are for non-alcoholic? What would you say to those people?
I would say for the people that say that, that's their experience. That's the truth for them. You
Mm-hmm.
know, everyone's experience is valid. And I think the reason, I don't know this to be true, but my feeling is that the reason why they have that warning is because they've seen some shit,
Yeah.
and because the cost can be so steep for those people who don't heed their triggers. If a non-alcoholic drink, or like an NA beer, for example, because
Mm-hmm.
my friend who helped me talk through a lot of these issues when we were first starting out, he said the same thing. Non-alcoholic beer is for non-alcoholics,
Yeah.
and he had heard that from a meeting. And I think that, and he doesn't drink non-alcoholic beer, but he does drink Curious,
Yeah.
but there's one flavor of Curious number 5, that's a little too close to whiskey for him, and so
Mm-hmm.
he stays away from it. And
Okay.
that experience is totally valid,
Mm-hmm.
because he doesn't want to go back to that time and place, even if he's in no danger in that moment. He doesn't want to put himself in danger later, because it reminds him of those times. So I think that it's valid, but it's really up to each person's individual experience and their choices, because everything is ultimately a choice.
Yes.
And people can choose to drink Curious or not. They can choose to go to recovery programs or not. They can choose what works for them. My feeling is, try it out in a measured way. Whatever it is you think works for you, try it out in a measured way and see how it feels to your body,
Mm-hmm.
see how it feels to your soul, see how it feels to your family, and what the repercussions of it are. I think that that's ultimately the way forward, is for everybody to key into their own experience first, before they let someone else's judgment make it for them.
Yes.
And that's really what it comes down to. And that's true around drinking culture in general, because it's programmed into us that like how we unwind is with alcohol.
Yes.
That's
Totally.
how we do it
Every
as a
Friday
global
night.
culture,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah. Friday,
Right.
weekend. Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that way. We get to choose, and that's why, we opened up Club Curious, our little sober speakeasy in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, where you've been, to be a showcase of what life can look like when you have less alcohol. Life can be just as fun. It can be just as weird. It can have just as much creativity, if not more. And the benefit is you remember all of it.
Yes.
So like, that's what it's about. We get to make these choices and we get to create, our future. And it's so much fun doing it with people like you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's I really like that answer, like, and that's usually what I try to convey when people ask me why I go to those events. Like, am I trying to, the concern, I mean, rightfully so, that is I'm trying to fill a void or trying to emulate something that I used to have with alcohol. But no, it's just like it's a great option, and I just don't want to drink a bunch of Red Bull or like a bunch of like ginger ale all the time. I want something better, healthier options, and that's why I like going to those to those events like the Good Award AF, which I wanted to ask you how beneficial those events are for you and for the brand, for the movement. Like, was that your first Good AF award, by the way?
That was our first, although Lorelai and I have known each other for maybe a decade. We used to jam and play music together.
Okay.
And, and Curious has been a part of Listen Bar since day one. I mean, I remember when she came to me before she had launched Listen Bar and was telling me about the idea, and I was like, yeah, do it, go for it. How can we help? Because we need Lorelai, we need like the people behind Sands Bar doing, Sands Bar across the country. We need the non-alcoholic bottle shops. We need the restaurateurs, the general managers, the sommeliers, everyone to just start asking these questions of how can I serve the staggering number of people who don't drink a little bit better in their lives.
True.
Because it's a crazy high number.
I know, I mean, right?
AA is, AA has a few million people in it, but the people who don't drink at all, and these are numbers from 2015, mind you, they've only gone up since there, but 75 million adult Americans don't drink alcohol at all. 75 million adults. That's about 1 in 4. Then there's another 90 million Americans who have 2 or fewer drinks per week, alcohol-wise. And so that's a tremendous amount of people that all deserve to have something special, deserve to have something that can help them unwind, and to look forward to, like same way, like I don't eat a lot of cheeseburgers anymore, but that one cheeseburger a month I have, oh my goodness, it's so good.
That's funny because I was talking to a friend about last time I ate at McDonald's. I was like, I haven't eaten at McDonald's in years because, like, I'm healthy and stuff. And we ate there recently. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it tastes good, but oh man, it's like I'm fine with it being a guilty pleasure from time to time.
Oh yeah.
Not
mine is McDonald's breakfast. That's
my
guilty pleasure.
Oh, you see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like, I really appreciate the movement that, Lorelai Go the World AF. Maybe what do you think about this? Like because maybe also there's at the moment, I feel like it's still expensive to go alcohol free, like, like the event, for example, you still have a pay barrier. People cannot, there was still tickets to attend those events, what's your idea to bring the cost down of those events? How can we make it free, because not maybe free at the beginning, I'm not too sure, but it's still cheaper to do alcohol, because
well, there's more places where you can go and just walk in for free and hang out because they're selling alcohol. That is true. So my feeling is that, I mean, first of all, we're doing it by example at Club Curious. It's free to come here. There aren't tickets except on very rare occasions. But people can come through for free. They RSVP, they come through, and they can have, a Curious Elixir, one free on the house. The first one when they first come here, we give them one for free. Their drinks after that they pay for.
Okay.
But that's just a little way that we can give back and also get people to try what we're talking about. Because if you're spending, $9 or $10 a bottle, and yeah, it's 2 or 3 servings a bottle, but if you're spending that amount of money, you want to make sure you like it, right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
The other way we have to do it is through being in every performance venue, networking conference, hotel possible. And we're a small company. It's going to take us a few more years to get there. We're in about 2,000 places across the country, but if that becomes 200,000 places, then that's seismic change. That's a seismic shift. Yeah. So the way that we can do that is by having at least some lower cost options, and by helping those people that maybe don't have the money, but they still want to try things. I encourage people to make them at home as well too. Yeah. And it's hard to make something as complex as, say like Curious Elixir number 8 at home. Like it would be very, very challenging. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would be very hard because, when you're getting 3 different types of adaptogenic mushrooms and organic blackberries and blueberries and figs, it becomes pretty challenging. But just with things found in your average grocery store, you can make incredible drinks. Yeah.
Like just using ginger.
And like one of the...
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Like, no, I was just going to share that, like, the one that I recommend to a lot of people if they want to start out in their own home and they don't have a lot of money, get yourself some dried hibiscus flowers. Hibiscus flowers are not very expensive. They're incredible. They're tannic. They're tangy. They're loaded with vitamin C. Get some fresh ginger root and get some lime and play around with some fun, different, Caribbean spices. You can make an unbelievable drink for less than $2. Yeah. Like, and you'll, I mean, for probably less than $10 of hibiscus flowers and spices and ginger, you could make, I don't know, probably like 100 glasses of it. It just takes a lot of time. It takes effort and it takes patience. For people who want convenience and they want somebody to do that for them, that's why places like Curious exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm not spending my time like perfecting, a bacon cheeseburger at my house. Yeah. Like I've got my roast chicken and my roast broccoli or Brussels sprouts. Like I've got my salmon. Like I cook pretty simply at home because my drinks are so complicated.
I mean, we have so much energy and we need to put it, I don't know, like allocate that energy in some places. We cannot be like, 100% everywhere. So I don't blame you for that at all. I totally understand, But yeah, that's what. By the way, when you say hibiscus and ginger, elixir number 2 is my favorite because of those ingredients.
Oh, the spicy pineapple ginger.
Yeah. I like that. I like how it like the bites and like the spiciness of number 2. That's for sure.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it took a long time to find that right ginger that has that burn, that lingering burn. Because a lot of gingers, they'll be hot, but they won't linger.
Yeah.
And we wanted one that lingers. And then we added another element by adding ancho chili. So that gives a little bit of smoke. And then over the top, we have star anise, which is a fun flavor, but it's pretty subtle in that drink at this point because we've taken that amount down to make everything kind of blend together. You can pick it apart if you really want to, or you can just enjoy the ride, because it's got a beginning, middle, and an end. And every elixir that we make must have a beginning, middle, and an end, or else it's not an adult drink.
Yeah.
Then it might as well just be a fancy juice,
Yeah.
and nothing wrong with a fancy juice. But this is not that. This is something entirely different.
No, definitely. And like I noticed it. Like, the first time I tried elixir was at uh the reprieve party in the New Year's Eve reprieve party that I think you sponsored that one, right? New with like DJ.
We love to donate to parties of all kinds, parties, charities, anything. But that was the first time you tried it at reprieve. That's so
cool.
Reprieve,
which is the was like a non-alcoholic, no like drugs, New Year's Eve party. And I was surprised by how good it tasted. And when I subscribed to when I follow you on Instagram, then it was Try January and you had those events, and that's when I came in person and I had to talk to you to pick your brain a little bit on who is behind those cocktails and what's your motivation, what makes you move forward. I have a question before I give you the floor. I forgot to ask. I mean, actually, it came to my mind once you said like expanding Middle East and Africa. So for countries that are like mostly Muslim and like in Islam, you're not supposed to drink. Is that like you're not supposed to drink alcohol? Is that a market that like you would like to tap in? Like, since you say you would like to expand, like, is that something you have thought about?
I mean, we would love to. I think it's all in its due time. And we've been approached by people in many different countries, in almost every continent except Antarctica, I think. Yeah, well, Greenland's a continent, right? Nobody from Greenland has contacted us.
Yeah.
But people in Africa, people in the Middle East have contacted us. They're thirsty for it. They have limited options there too, that they've told me. And that's starting to change. It is starting to change. We would love to see Curious there. We'd also love to see just some amazing homegrown options in all of these places. And I think there's room for both.
Yeah.
We want to make something unique. We do already use, pomegranates from Turkey. So, maybe we'll start making some in Turkey someday. Who knows?
Who knows?
Or some other part. I hope that we can make these drinks locally. When we do expand. I know that's maybe not the most efficient way to do it when you get started, but I feel like investing into each of these countries and having people that bottle it locally, it'll have more of an impact, I think, eventually, rather than just exporting stuff from America and going to another place. I think it'll be more challenging, but I hope that people will continue to reach out from these different parts of the world, because we are down to collaborate. It's just a matter of the right time and the right partners.
That's great. All right, the floor is yours. Where can we find Curious Elixir? When is the next event, by the way, at Curious? You can share
tonight, baby.
Yeah,
tonight. Tonight.
Oh yeah, it's Thursday. It's Thursday.
Yeah, we're open every Thursday at Club Curious, with a few exceptions, but most Thursdays we're open to the public. And then Curious Elixirs can be found on our website, curiouselixirs.com. All of our events and parties and whatnot can be found on our link in bio in our Instagram at Curious Elixirs. And I would just say, to everyone out there who has an idea, who has something that feels like should exist, follow it a little bit every day for 5 minutes. Find anybody can find 5 minutes in their day, even the busiest people in the world. And, just find those 5 minutes, as much as you can, each day. And you'll be amazed by what happens, when that happens. I mean, you're doing that with your podcast right now. And, meeting people, talking to people, exploring this movement, helping people to understand why it's important, and reaching more people with it every day. And, so I applaud you for doing that. And I hope that whoever's listening, that they take a cue from what you're doing, and just follow what is most interesting and charming to them. Other than that, that's why we say, like the sign says behind me, stay
Stay
curious.
curious. Yeah.
That's the way to be. And I just want to say thank you again for having me on. It's really nice chatting with you.
Thank you very much, JW. And guys, I will see you later for the conclusion. All right. Thanks. Well. This concludes episode 21. Thank you to JW for being my guest on this podcast. I really loved our conversation and plan on attending many curious events. I would like to take this opportunity to mention that I've been working on setting up our Patreon page. I'm still figuring out the different tiers, but I plan on releasing monthly round table episodes of the show, similar to the one on episode 9, while I will be, with guests talking about like the things that work in recovery, the things that work less or don't work at all. And yes, I will make an announcement on social media once it's done. And as always, follow us guys on social media, and I will see you next week. Bye.